They say peace is quiet, but they're wrong. Real peace is power, the kind that doesn't flinch under pressure, the kind that stands calm when the storm hits. You see, the average person has over 6,000 thoughts a day. Most of them negative, self-doubt, fear, regret. But here's the truth. You can't control the storm. You can only control the sail. And that sail is your mind. Inner peace is not about escaping the noise. It's about not letting the noise control you. It's waking up with purpose, moving with clarity, and refusing to let the world decide your worth. Because the most dangerous person in the room is the one who's calm, focused, unshaken. So breathe. Pause, reset. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and that whisper, that's where your strength lives. When I was younger, I believed that getting older would naturally bring wisdom. But then I noticed that some people at 70 had incredibly sharp minds, while others couldn't even find their way around their homes. That's when I realized wisdom isn't a result of age. It comes from disciplined thinking. You can have silver hair and still lose your mental clarity. You might look experienced, yet live in a mental fog. If you want to keep your mind sharp, even into your 60s, 70s, and beyond, I want to share 3 things I've personally done to keep my thinking strong. But before that, let me explain why this matters even more than saving for retirement. Picture this. One man at 80 speaks with youthfulness, clarity, energy, and a sparkle in his eyes. Meanwhile, another man at 45 can't remember where he put his keys and hasn't asked himself a new question in ages. Is that a contradiction? No, that's just how life works. We all grow older, but not all of us lose our edge. I used to think this was unfair. Why do some people stay mentally sharp until their final breath, while others mentally fade long before their physical end? We all have the same brains, the same number of days, the same calendars, but the outcomes are so different. That's both scary and motivating. I remember one evening talking with an elderly man in Florida. He was nearly 80. Yet when he spoke about business, economics, and philosophy, I found myself thinking, I want to be like that when I'm older. He quoted Seneca and reflected on his youth with both humor and clear memory. And I thought, I don't just want to age. I want to keep my thoughts sharp, my speech strong, and my influence alive. Then I recalled another moment, a middle-aged man, full of life yet lost for words. He kept telling the same stories, not because they meant something to him, but because he had nothing fresh to say. His mind wasn't old, it had just been ignored, left unused, unstimulated, and unattended. That's when I told myself, Jim, cognitive health isn't about medicine. It's about discipline. It's a way of life. It's a decision. Today, I want to share 3 habits that have helped me keep my mind in shape through the years. These aren't supplements, medications, or scientific breakthroughs. They're simple habits, but simplicity is often ignored because it seems too obvious. One of the biggest lies I've seen is the idea that a clear mind is automatic. That memory, focus, and creativity don't need care. That's wrong. Your mind is like a garden, and if you don't tend to it, weeds will take over. I've met so many people in public life, in business, in day-to-day living who lost their edge not because of major tragedies or setbacks, but because they didn't actively protect the one thing that matters most, their thinking. The mind isn't a gift you just receive. It's like a muscle. If you don't work it out, it weakens. But here's the good part. You can still regain clarity. You can rebuild your mental energy, even if you're 70, even if you're 80. I'm speaking from personal experience. I didn't begin transforming my life in my teenage years. It started after I turned 25. I was broke, depressed, and hopeless. I couldn't even concentrate enough to pay my bills. My mind didn't work because I hadn't been working on it. Then a man named Earl Shea came into my life. He didn't give me a drug. He didn't tell me I was gifted. He just told me, Jim, if you want to change your life, begin by changing your thinking because your life reflects your thoughts. That statement hit me hard. That was my wake-up call. And now, decades later, I can say with certainty, clarity is something you build. Memory is a talent you practice. Creativity is something you train. Every aspect of mental fitness is the result of daily decisions. You know what fails people most as they age? Not their physical bodies. It's their indifference. Indifference toward what they allow into their minds. Indifference about whether they're still asking questions. Indifference about whether they remain curious? One of my favorite sayings is, life doesn't end when the heart stops. It ends when curiosity does. And that's when mental decline sets in. We talk endlessly about heart health, blood pressure, sugar levels, but hardly anyone talks about the mind, yet the mind drives everything. You can have a perfectly healthy body, but if your thinking is dull, you're not really living. You're just getting by. Mental sharpness isn't just a medical issue, it's a lifestyle one. And in this kind of life, there are 3 habits I'll keep up until the day I die. If you stay with me until the end, I won't just tell you what they are. I'll show you how to start using them today, even if you've never taken this seriously before. Because honestly, the most valuable investment isn't financial. It's in the sharpness of your mind, so get comfortable. Switch on the mental light inside you, because what I'm about to share next is what I wish I had heard back when I was 25 and stuck in mental darkness. The first practice is, become the protector of your mind. Guard your mind like a fortress. One day, my mentor, Mr. Chaff, asked me, how much do you pay someone to guard the entrance to your mind? I didn't understand what he meant. I thought maybe I misheard him. But he said again, a guard. You wouldn't let just anyone into your home, right? So why do you treat your mind like an open train station? People come in, say anything, and you just accept it. No filter, no second thought, no permission. That image stayed with me forever because back then my mind was exactly like that. A wide open space. Negativity from TV, complaints from coworkers, gossip from friends, fear from the news, anxiety from the world. I let all of it in. I'd wake up and immediately be consumed by noise. And all that noise stopped me from thinking clearly. It clouded my ability to see chances. Most dangerously, it changed how I spoke to myself inside. I began to repeat what I heard without even questioning it. And that's the biggest danger. After years of working with people, I've realized most aren't physically tired. They're mentally worn out. Their minds are overloaded daily with useless information. They wake up and check the news. They go to work and hear complaints. They come home and watch TV, which tells them how bad the world is, how expensive everything has become, how hopeless the future seems. Then they wonder, why don't I have new ideas? Why does my brain feel foggy? My friend, it's not fog, it's clutter. That's where the first major habit begins. Become the protector of your mind. Don't be a victim or just a passenger. Be the guardian. People hit the gym for their bodies. But who's training their mind? A mind that constantly consumes random stuff breaks down. A mind fed on fear becomes weak. A mind that accepts daily doubt begins to vanish. So ask yourself, who did you allow into your mind today? And what did they bring with them? My mentor once told me, your life doesn't get better by luck. It improves when your choices improve. And the most important choice is the one you make about your thoughts. Everything begins with a thought. Before an action, a thought. Before a feeling, a thought. Even before worry, there's a thought. So if you learn to guide your thoughts, you guide your life. I made one powerful but simple change in my own life. I stopped letting in anything that didn't add value. I stopped feeding on toxic information. If a TV show leaves me angry, I stop watching it. If a conversation with a friend fills me with doubt, I avoid shallow talks. If a piece of news doesn't inspire action, I ignore it. That's not being selfish. It's being mentally clean. Your mind isn't a garbage bin, it's a sacred space. But how often do we let strangers into that sacred space? People say, it's just a show, just the news, just a podcast. But those things don't just inform you, they shape your inner voice. And that inner voice affects how you see everything. Yourself and the world. I learned to ask myself just one question for every thought. Will this help me improve? If yes, it's a friend. If not, it's a foe. It might sound smart. It might be witty. But if it hurts my mental clarity, I don't want it. Because clarity is my edge. Ever feel like your thoughts aren't even your own? Like you're repeating someone else's fear, or anger, or gloom? That means you need a mental guard. And not just any guard, one with rule. One who only lets in what strengthens you. Everything that enters either builds you or doesn't get in. That's the level of discipline needed to protect not just your mind, but your future. Now be honest. How many times recently have you let in thoughts with no value? How many times have you absorbed someone else's panic, How many of your own ideas died because you listened to someone else's worry? It's not that there's no danger in the world, it's that constant worry stops your brain from performing at its peak. It drains your energy instead of powering it. A scared mind doesn't create. And if you're not creating, you're not growing. You know why this becomes even more important as we age? Because the older we get, the more experiences we have. And experience is valuable. But experience without fresh thinking is just storage. You can have 1,000 stories, but no new insights. You can know everything but understand nothing. Here's what I believe. Mental health isn't about how old you are. It's about how many fresh ideas you have. Inside us, every day, two sides are in battle. The mind that wants clarity, and the noise that wants control. If you don't put a guard at the gate, the noise will win. So ask yourself, am I protecting my mind, or am I letting anything in? And that's just the beginning. Because next, I'll show you how to move from just defending your mind to actively growing it every single day. I'll show you how the simple act of writing can become a tool for clarity, strength, and memory. Stick around, because it only gets more powerful from here. Writing for focus and growth. Second practice, your journal is your mental workout space. Let me ask you something and be honest. How many ideas have you forgotten? How many life lessons have faded away because you didn't write them down? How much inspiration disappeared by the next morning because you didn't capture it when it came? I used to believe I'd remember everything too, that my brain would hold on to the important stuff. Huge misunderstanding. Memory isn't a storage vault. Memory is like a sieve. If you don't grab your ideas immediately, they slip away like a breeze, sometimes gone for good. Everything shifted for me when my mentor said a sentence that I now repeat in every session, every group I speak to, every time I teach. Don't rely on your memory. Write things down. That advice was simple, but it gave me a whole new way of thinking. From that moment on, my journal turned into a place where I strengthened my thinking. I began sharpening my focus by writing on paper, and you know what happened? My thinking improved, my speaking got clearer. I remembered things more deeply, and I understood them with greater insight. All of that came from nothing more than a pen and an empty notebook. That's why I say now, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have if you haven't recorded it. A journal isn't just a bunch of sentences. A journal is a reflection of who you are. It holds your growth, your learning, your big moments, your errors, and your progress. Someone who doesn't journal is like someone without a mirror. They live through things but never take the time to understand how those experiences shape them. But a journal shows you your past self, your present self, and the person you're becoming. This isn't just a place for emotions. It's a tool for thought, a focusing device for the brain, a mirror that reflects your inner world. I can still recall my very first journal page. It wasn't impressive, just a date and one simple question. What did I learn about myself today? But that small entry became the start of a personal collection of inner discoveries. As time went on, I realized that the more I wrote, the quicker I could process thoughts. The more regularly I captured what I was thinking, the better I could understand those thoughts. It's like doing a deep clean of the mind. Your thoughts get sorted, not stacked in a mess. Another reason journaling matters is that it helps you think for yourself. In a world full of people trying to place their thoughts into your head, your journal becomes the one place where your voice leads. It's your quiet zone, your mental studio, a room without noise where only your reflections, your life lessons, and your thinking patterns live. It's where your choices begin to take shape. People often say to me, "Hey Jim, I'm too busy to write." And I answer with this: how much time do you waste repeating the same errors? Because here's the truth. If it's not written down, it hasn't been fully learned. If you haven't paused to reflect, then the lesson is lost. And when your experience is lost, you'll likely make the same mistake again, but next time you'll be even more confused with no direction. Writing creates a guide. You make your own map. You see exactly where you stumbled and why. You remember where you grew and how that happened. But most importantly, you begin to notice your own repeating cycles. You see what drains your energy, what causes your fear, and what deeply inspires you. And once you become aware of those patterns, you gain real power over your mind. I added one small habit to my life. At the end of each day, I wrote 3 short things. First, what I learned. Second, what I could have done in a better way. Third, what I was thankful for. Sometimes it only took 2 minutes. But those 2 minutes did more to shape my mental strength than hours of watching the news, listening to advice, or reading books. Because that writing wasn't for others. It was my training, my own development. Now let me tell you something surprising. The older you get, the more valuable your journal becomes. Not just for helping your memory, but for keeping your sense of self. People don't lose themselves simply because they age. They lose themselves because they stop capturing who they really are. They stop reflecting. They stop asking deep questions. They stop noticing how they're evolving. But when you write, you don't forget who you are. You continue creating yourself every day. Some people may say, "That's not for me. I'm not someone who writes." Well, neither was I. I only began with one simple thought. I don't want to lose track of myself. That one thought led me into a habit that helped save my mind from getting lost. So don't wait. Don't wait for the right kind of notebook or for a wave of inspiration or for the perfect moment to begin. Just start with whatever you have, even if it's an old scrap of paper. The most important thing is to begin, because mental clarity doesn't visit those who sit still. It shows up for the people who write. So if you want to think sharply, remember more strongly, and build your ability to create, then start your journal. Not for others to see, not to impress anyone, but for you. Because in those pages, your strength begins to take form. And that's not the end. In the third section, we'll talk about the main principle, how to grow yourself so that success flows to you naturally. Not because you chase after it, but because it reflects the kind of person you've become. And there you'll discover the most powerful secret behind a mind that stays sharp and clear. Don't miss it. Bring in clarity by changing your inner self. Third practice, become the kind of person who draws in clarity. One of the most harmful myths out there is the idea that success and clear thinking must be chased down, grabbed, and held like a wild animal. But I want to give you a phrase that turned my whole way of understanding upside down. It came from my mentor and has become one of the most impactful lessons of my life. You don't go out and get success, you attract it by becoming the right person. And let me say something else. It's the same with a clear mind. You don't force it to arrive. You don't battle with your thoughts. You become the kind of person whose mind naturally clears. It shows up because of your inner structure, your personal systems, your habits, your ability to endure, and the depth of your thinking. Clarity enters where it feels welcomed by an open and prepared mind, not one full of mental clutter. I know that might sound a bit vague, so let me explain with something personal. I remember when I was 25, I had nothing, not just in my bank account, but in my thoughts. My finances were a mess, my thinking was chaotic, and my emotions were worn out. I kept trying to figure out how to make money, how to survive, how to stop my life from crashing. But the harder I tried, the more confused I became, because I was trying to fix things using the same broken thinking that caused the problems in the first place. That's when my mentor, Mr. Chaff, appeared again. He looked at me quietly and said, "Jim, if you want things to be different, you have to become different. You won't experience better results until you become better yourself. Success isn't something you run after. It's something that comes to you." I didn't totally grasp what he meant at first, but deep inside, I knew it was important because I was hoping for big changes while still being the same version of myself. And that simply doesn't work. Your results are just mirrors. They don't show up because of dreams. They show up based on the person you are. And that brings us to the highest form of mental strength. Yes, it matters to protect your thoughts. Yes, it's important to write regularly. But if you're not evolving as a person, your mind won't expand either. And mental clarity is the product of personal growth. Not from staying calm, not from being comfortable, but from choosing to grow. The more I worked on changing myself, the more clearly I could think. Answers came more easily. Doubt faded into the background. It was a natural outcome. Clear minds belong to people who are clear inside, people who don't stay stuck in their habits, who aren't trapped by old fears, who don't hold on to anger or pain that fogs up their thinking like dirt on glass. You want to know what most often damages adult thinking? It's unresolved pain. It's the doubts we turn into our comfort zone. It's the easy but harmful routines we never question. To get past that thick mental fog, you have to renew yourself. You have to become fresh again. And when you do, maybe not immediately, but without a doubt, a new level of thinking shows up. One day, you'll wake up and notice something's changed. Your thoughts feel lighter, your choices seem clearer, your memory works better, and your ideas are stronger. But that's not magic. That's what happens when you put in the work on yourself. I've always said this, work more on yourself than on your job. Because if you focus only on your job, you'll just make a living. But if you work on yourself, you build your future. And that same truth applies to your mental health. A mind that doesn't grow with you becomes just a tool. But a mind that grows alongside you, that's a builder, a designer, a source of energy. And that's the kind of mind you want to have at 40, 50, 60, 70, and beyond. As you get older, yes, the world changes, but the most important thing is that you don't lose yourself. Don't let go of your passion. Don't stop asking questions, because as long as you ask, you're alive. As long as you change, your thoughts are still active. As long as you keep learning, your mind stays strong. And this is the point where it's really important not to deceive yourself. Don't let the thought creep in like, I'm getting older now. It's too late for change. My friends, clarity isn't determined by your age or what's stamped in your passport. It's guided by the values you live by. If today you begin acting like a person who naturally draws clarity toward them, clarity will follow. If you choose to speak less, think more deeply, and listen with more care, your brain will reward you. If you step out of your comfort zone even slightly every single day, your brain cells will say, he's still engaged. Let's switch on. Clarity doesn't just show up. It responds when it's asked for, and you are the one making that request. You are the person who sets the stage. You're not controlled by your age, your situation, or your genes. You're the writer of your life. You're the one either building a space where clarity can thrive or letting mental noise rush in. So now I ask you to be completely honest with yourself. Who are you turning into? How is your mental energy doing? Are you drawing clarity into your life or trying to avoid it? Because that's what this third principle is all about. Becoming someone who brings clarity into their life. Not someone who begs for it, not someone who fakes it, not someone who steals it, but someone who pulls it in naturally. Because the mind isn't something we're just handed. It's something that answers back. It reflects your daily habits, your personal standards, your courage, your drive. Now we'll pause, but only briefly, because next comes something you can apply right away. We'll go through a short but meaningful brain workout. I'll walk you through 5 powerful questions I often ask myself to keep my thoughts sharp. It won't take long. It'll be easy to follow, but it may end up being the most eye-opening minute of your week. Are you ready? Then let's begin. A short training now, simple but meaningful. 5 questions that work like little mental mirrors. I want you to answer them fast with full honesty, based on your gut feeling. Don't analyze too much. Feel your answers. They show you where your mind really is. And before we start, if you haven't joined yet, subscribe now. These moments don't happen all the time. And I'd love for you to join a space where it's not just motivation that's growing, but your thinking too. Click subscribe, and let's dive in. Question 1. From 1 to 10, how deliberately do I choose what I allow into my mind? Picture your mind like a body. Each morning you feed it information. The real question is, was that content like a healthy meal or just junk food for the brain? Your rating tells you if you're the one choosing or if the outside world is doing it for you. Question 2. From 1 to 10, how often do I actually write down the ideas, thoughts, and lessons I come across? It's like having a personal vault for your mind's treasures. If you don't write things down, how much valuable thinking is slipped away forever? Your score is like an alert. Are you steering your own ship or just drifting without a direction? Question 3. From 1 to 10, how much do I grow just for the sake of becoming better, not just for reaching goals? This isn't about showing off achievements, it's about inner development. Are you evolving each day, or are you just getting through the days without change? Your answer will expose the truth. Remember, clarity doesn't live in places where nothing is growing. Question 4. From 1 to 10, how adaptable is my thinking? Do I look for new ideas, or do I cling tightly to what I already know? Thought isn't like cement. It's more like clay. The more you work it, the more it can transform. If you haven't looked at things in a new way for years, your thinking may be asleep. Time to wake it up. Question 5. From 1 to 10, how deeply curious am I about life itself? This is the center point, the source behind all your other answers. Curiosity is the fire that keeps your mind alive. If you stop caring, no tool or method will help. But if you've got even a tiny spark, it can be turned into something powerful. Did you answer them? Wonderful. Now I have a small request. Leave a comment and tell me which of these questions really got your attention. The one that made you stop and think or feel something different. Sometimes that one single moment is the doorway to a new way of thinking. One last thing, if this video offered you even one valuable insight, click the like button. Not to feed the algorithm, but to remind yourself that you were here. You heard this. You began. And now something important. You don't need to get perfect scores. You don't need all 10s. This isn't a test. It's a direction. And I suggest that after you finish watching, revisit these 5 questions, not just in your thoughts, but with a pen. Pause, write your answers, and really begin to view your mind from the inside out. Because real breakthroughs don't start with outside motivation. They begin with true honesty with yourself. Now, the rest is in your hands. You've listened, you've felt something, and now you have a choice: either save that feeling for later or turn it into action. Because your mind is a special gift, one you either train or slowly lose. And the real question is not about how many years you've lived. The real question is, how much clear thinking, mental strength, and curiosity are you carrying inside? Do you wake up feeling excited by your own thoughts, or are they starting to dim? So here's my invitation to you. Become the kind of person your mind needs. Be someone who protects their thoughts, captures their insights, and grows each day. Not because you have to, but because you're capable of more. Your clarity is not a fantasy, it's an outcome. And outcomes are shaped by the way you live your life. And if even 1 second in this video made you stop and reflect, don't let that moment disappear. Because that pause was proof you're still fully alive inside. And that means your best is not behind you, it's still waiting up ahead.